"We're using your tax refund for a new kitchen," Dad announced. My $12,800 refund check. I asked, "How do you even know the amount?" Mom smirked. "We opened your letter from the tax office." I smiled, logged in, changed the deposit details, switched to online only. When they tried to pay the contractor and the balance stayed at zero. My name is Michael. I'm 33 years old, and for most of my adult life, I've been the dependable one. The son who always picked up the phone. The one who never said no when my parents needed something. I'm a biomedical engineer at a medical device company, pulling in decent money, living alone in a small apartment 20 minutes from my childhood home. My older sister, Evelyn, lives 3 states away with her husband and 2 kids. She visits twice a year, gets treated like royalty, and leaves. I stay. I help. I provide. Growing up, I learned early that being dependable meant being invisible. Evelyn got the big birthday parties, the new laptop for college, the down payment help when she bought her first house. I got the quiet nod when I brought home good grades. The expectation that I'd figure things out on my own. And I did. I worked through college, paid my own way, bought my own car. My parents were proud, they said. Proud that I didn't need their help. But somewhere along the way, that pride turned into assumption. Assumption that I'd always be there when they needed me. When their furnace broke 3 winters ago, I paid the repair bill. When Dad's truck needed new tires, I covered it. When Mom wanted to visit Evelyn for her grandson's birthday, I bought the plane ticket. They never asked if I could afford it. They just expected it. And I gave it because that's what you do for family. That's what I believed. I still received some mail at their house. Old habit from college when I used their address for student loan paperwork, tax documents, anything official. I kept meaning to change it all, but I never got around to it. It felt easier to just stop by once a week and grab whatever had piled up on the kitchen counter. They never commented on it. Never seemed to mind. This year had been particularly good at work. We'd launched a new cardiac monitoring device, and my team earned substantial bonuses on top of our regular salaries. I'd also been careful with my taxes, maximizing deductions, keeping meticulous records. My accountant told me in February that I'd be looking at a significant refund, around $12,800. I smiled when she said the number. That was enough to finally start my emergency fund properly. Maybe even take a real vacation for the first time in 5 years. The refund check was supposed to arrive in early April. I made a mental note to swing by my parents' place that week to grab it. No rush. It would be safe there on the counter with the grocery store ads and utility bills. I should have known better. I should have seen the pattern. The way my parents had started talking about home improvements lately. How Mom kept showing me pictures of modern kitchens on her phone, sighing about their outdated cabinets and chipped countertops. How Dad mentioned that a contractor buddy of his was offering spring discounts. I thought it was just conversation. Just dreams. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday evening when I stopped by after work. I'd texted Mom that I'd be coming for dinner, something I did maybe once or twice a month. She made her usual pot roast, and we sat around the same dining table I'd eaten at since childhood. Dad was in a good mood, talking about a fishing trip he wanted to plan. Mom was cheerful, asking about my work project. Everything felt normal. Then, halfway through dinner, Dad set down his fork and looked at me with that expression I'd seen 100 times before. The one that meant he was about to tell me something, not ask me. "We're using your tax refund for a new kitchen," he announced. Not a question, a statement, as casual as commenting on the weather. I stopped chewing, looked at him, then at Mom. She was smiling, completely unbothered. My voice came out calm, but confusion was already crawling up my spine. "How do you even know the amount?" Mom's smile widened slightly, and she said it like it was nothing, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. "We opened your letter from the tax office." The pot roast turned to ash in my mouth. I sat there, fork frozen midair, staring at my mother's face. She wasn't joking. There was no punchline coming. She'd just admitted to opening my mail, reading my private tax information, and somehow this was all perfectly fine in their minds. "You opened my mail," I repeated slowly. Not a question, a statement trying to catch up with reality. Dad waved his hand dismissively. "It was just sitting there on the counter for 2 days. We thought it might be important. So you opened it." "Well, yes," Mom said, like I was being deliberately dense. "And it's perfect timing, really. We've been wanting to redo the kitchen for years, and $12,800 is exactly what we need for the cabinets, countertops, and new appliances." Dennis, the contractor, gave us a quote last week. I set my fork down carefully. My hands wanted to shake, but I kept them steady. You got a quote. For my money. Don't be dramatic, Michael, Dad said, cutting into his pot roast. It's not like you need it right now. You've got a good job, no kids, no mortgage. We're family. This kitchen has needed work since before you graduated high school. The logic was so twisted I almost couldn't find words to argue with it. They'd opened federal mail addressed to me, discovered I was getting a substantial refund, and decided among themselves that they deserved it more than I did. No phone call. No discussion. Just entitlement wrapped in family obligation. When were you planning to tell me? I asked. Mom looked confused by the question. We're telling you now. The contractor is coming Thursday to start demo work. We already signed the contract. You signed a contract. Well, we needed to lock in his spring rate, Dad explained. He's booked solid through summer. We're lucky he had an opening. I felt something cold settling into my chest. A clarity I hadn't felt in years. I looked at both of them, really looked at them, and saw something I'd been avoiding my whole life. They didn't see me as a son. They saw me as a resource. A bank account that breathed and occasionally showed up for pot roast. The deposit is $6,000, Mom continued, oblivious to the shift happening inside me. We told Dennis the check would clear by Monday. Your refund should be deposited by then, right? You still use that joint account we set up when you were in college. And there it was. The joint account. The one I'd opened at 17 because I needed my parents' signatures. The one I'd kept active because closing it felt like too much hassle, and I rarely used it anyway. All my work paychecks went to my personal checking account at a different bank. But my tax refunds, those still routed to the old account because I'd never updated the direct deposit information with the IRS. That account where both my parents' names appeared as secondary holders, where they could check the balance anytime they wanted, where a $12,800 deposit would show up like a gift from heaven, free for the taking. You've already spent money I haven't even received yet, I said quietly. We haven't spent anything, Dad corrected. We've committed to it. There's a difference. And honestly, Michael, after everything we've done for you over the years, I think helping us with one home improvement project isn't too much to ask. Everything they'd done for me. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to pull out my bank statements from the last 5 years and line them up on this table. Show them every furnace repair, every plane ticket, every truck tire, every time I'd said yes when I should have said no. But I didn't, because I was already seeing the path forward with perfect clarity. Mom started clearing plates, talking about paint colors for the kitchen walls. Dad mentioned they'd need to eat out for a few weeks during the renovation, and wouldn't it be nice if I took them to that Italian place they liked? They were already spending more of my money in their minds, already planning how to drain me further. I smiled. Actually smiled. When does the contractor need the deposit? I asked, my voice perfectly calm. Mom brightened. Thursday morning. He'll stop by at 9 to pick up the check before his crew arrives. Okay, I said simply. They both relaxed, satisfied that I'd accepted my role. The dependable son who always came through. I helped Mom with the dishes, kissed her cheek goodbye, shook Dad's hand. Drove home through the dark streets with that same calm smile on my face. The moment I walked into my apartment, I grabbed my laptop. I sat on my couch, laptop glowing in the dark living room, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Control. Actual, real control over my own life. For 33 years, I'd let my parents dictate the terms of our relationship. They took, I gave. They demanded, I provided. They assumed, I accepted. Not anymore. My fingers moved across the keyboard with steady precision. I logged into the IRS website, navigated to my account, pulled up my tax return. There it was. The $12,800 refund, status showing, approved, payment scheduled. Estimated deposit date was Friday. 3 days away. 2 days before the contractor expected his $6,000 check. I clicked through to the direct deposit information section. The old joint account number stared back at me, digits I'd memorized years ago when I was a teenager applying for my first part-time job. My parents' bank. Their branch. An account where my name came first, but their access came easy. The change took 4 minutes. 4 minutes to delete the old routing number and account number. 4 minutes to enter my personal checking account information instead. The account only I controlled. The account my parents didn't even know existed because I'd never mentioned opening it. A confirmation screen popped up. Direct deposit information updated. All future refunds will be deposited to the account ending in 7392. Please allow 24 to 48 hours for changes to process. Confirmation email sent. I clicked confirm. Then I went one step further. I changed all my tax correspondence settings to paperless delivery only. No more letters to my parents' address. No more envelopes sitting on their kitchen counter, waiting to be opened by people who thought privacy was optional when it came to their dependable son. My phone buzzed. The confirmation email from the IRS. I forwarded it to my personal email, then deleted it from my phone. No evidence. No trail. Just a quiet administrative change that would reshape everything. I should have felt guilty. Some part of me waited for the shame to kick in. The voice that always told me family came first. That good sons helped their parents. That $12,800 was just money and kitchens were practical needs. But that voice was quiet now, buried under years of open mail, assumed obligations, and casual theft. Because that's what this was. Theft. Federal mail tampering at minimum, financial exploitation at worst. They'd opened government documents addressed to me, made financial commitments using money they had no legal right to touch, and expected me to just accept it because we shared DNA. I thought about Thursday morning, about the contractor showing up at 9, about my father confidently writing a check from the joint account, certain the money would be there because I was dependable. I always came through. The image made something dark and satisfied settle in my chest. The apartment was silent except for the hum of my refrigerator. I looked around at my small space, the furniture I'd bought myself, the life I'd built with no help from anyone. This was mine. My money was mine. My choices were mine. I closed the laptop and sat in the darkness for a long time, thinking about all the years I'd confused obligation with love. Thinking about my sister, Evelyn, 3 states away, getting help with her house down payment while I got expectations. Thinking about every time I'd said yes when I meant no, every bill I'd paid that wasn't mine, every boundary I'd failed to set because I thought that's what family meant. Thursday morning was going to be interesting. I could already see it. Dad's confident smile. Mom's excitement about her new kitchen. The contractor's paperwork spread on the dining table. And then the moment. The beautiful, clarifying moment when Dad checked the account balance and saw 0. I smiled in the darkness and went to bed. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, watching car headlights sweep across the walls, and I let myself remember things I'd spent years trying to forget. Moments that seemed small at the time, but added up to a pattern I'd been too close to see. I was 16 when Evelyn got her first car. A used Honda Civic, nothing fancy, but it was hers. Dad took her to the dealership, helped her negotiate, co-signed the loan. They made it a whole event. Took pictures. Went to dinner after. I was happy for her. Genuinely happy. 2 years later, when I needed a car for my community college commute, Dad handed me the classifieds and told me to start saving. I worked 30 hours a week at a grocery store, saved for 8 months, and bought a beat-up Toyota with 140,000 miles on it. It broke down twice that first year. I fixed it myself using YouTube videos and borrowed tools. My parents never asked if I needed help. They were proud I was so independent. That word, independent. I heard it so many times growing up. Michael is so independent. He figures things out on his own. Not like Evelyn. She needs more support. They said it like it was a compliment. Like being neglected was actually a sign of my strength. When I graduated with my engineering degree, I had $40,000 in student loans. Evelyn had graduated 6 years earlier with $8,000 in debt because my parents had helped with her tuition. When I asked about it once, Dad explained that they'd had more savings back then. The economy was different. They'd helped when they could. I should understand. I understood. I understood that when they could meant when it was Evelyn who needed it. The pattern continued after college. When Evelyn's husband lost his job, my parents sent them $3,000 to cover rent and groceries. When I got laid off from my first engineering position and struggled for 2 months, my mother told me it was good character-building experience. That I'd find something soon because I was resilient. I did find something. Because I had no choice. Because there was no safety net. No $3,000 check arriving in the mail. No parents offering to cover my rent while I figured things out. Just me and my resilience and my independence, which apparently meant the same thing as being alone. But somewhere along the way, the script flipped. I became successful. Started making good money. Bought nice things, had savings, earned bonuses. And suddenly my parents were very interested in my independence, interested in how well I'd figured things out, interested in whether I could help with their furnace, their truck, their plane tickets. The help only flowed one direction. When I mentioned wanting to take a vacation last year, Mom told me that sounded expensive and maybe I should focus on building my savings instead. 3 weeks later, she asked if I could loan them $2,000 for new living room furniture. I gave it to them. They never paid it back. I never asked them to, because that's what good sons did. That's what family meant. Or at least, that's what I'd convinced myself it meant while slowly erasing my own boundaries, my own needs, my own right to keep what I'd earned. I thought about the $12,800 sitting in bureaucratic processing, about to land in my personal account instead of the joint one. About Thursday morning approaching like a train. My parents had no idea what was coming. They were probably sleeping peacefully right now, dreaming about granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, completely certain that their dependable son would come through again. They were wrong. For the first time in my adult life, I was choosing myself, and I wasn't going to apologize for it. Wednesday came with overcast skies and the kind of humidity that made your shirt stick to your back. I went to work like normal, sat through meetings about product timelines and safety testing protocols, ate lunch at my desk while reviewing technical specifications. Nobody at the office knew that I was counting down hours to a reckoning I'd set in motion with 4 minutes of keyboard clicks. My phone buzzed at 2:47 p.m. Mom, just confirming you'll stop by tonight for dinner? Dad wants to go over the kitchen timeline with you. I stared at the text for a full minute. They wanted me to come over, to sit at their table again, to smile and nod while they explained how my money was going to transform their house. The audacity was almost beautiful. I typed back, can't tonight. Work project running late. Have a good dinner. 3 dots appeared immediately. Disappeared. Appeared again. Okay. Well, the contractor comes at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Dad will handle the deposit. Thanks for being so understanding about this. We really appreciate it. Understanding. That word sat in my message thread like a stone. I didn't respond. Just set my phone down and went back to work, feeling that cold clarity settle deeper into my bones. At 6 p.m., I got another text. This time from Dad. Dennis confirmed for 9 a.m. sharp. Said he'll bring the full contract and timeline. Your mother is so excited she can barely sleep. This is going to really improve the house value. Good investment. Good investment. Using someone else's money without permission to improve your own asset, then calling it a good investment. The financial logic was so backwards it would be funny if it wasn't my life. I drove home through rush hour traffic, stopped at the grocery store, bought ingredients for a real dinner. Steak, asparagus, a good bottle of wine. If my parents were celebrating tomorrow's disaster, I might as well celebrate tonight's small victory. The victory of choosing myself, of taking back control. My apartment felt different that evening. Lighter somehow. I cooked slowly, carefully, playing music I liked, pouring wine into an actual glass instead of drinking from the bottle like I usually did after long days. This was what peace felt like. This was what boundaries felt like. At 8:30 p.m., my phone rang. Mom again. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. 10 minutes later, she texted. Just wanted to say thank you again. I know we didn't exactly ask permission, but you've always been so generous with us. This kitchen is going to be beautiful. You should come see it when it's done. Maybe we'll host Evelyn and the kids here for Thanksgiving. Wouldn't that be nice? Thanksgiving. 6 months away. She was already planning family gatherings in the kitchen she was building with money she'd stolen from me. Already imagining hosting Evelyn, the golden child, in a space funded by Michael, the dependable afterthought. I set the phone face down on the counter and finished my dinner in silence. Washed the dishes. Poured another glass of wine. Sat on my balcony and watched the city lights flicker in the distance while the temperature dropped and the humidity finally broke. Thursday was 12 hours away. In 12 hours, my father would wake up excited. My mother would probably make a big breakfast. They'd wait for Dennis the contractor like children waiting for Christmas morning. And at 9 a.m., when Dad confidently logged into that joint account to verify the funds before writing the check, he'd see a balance that hadn't changed. No $12,800 deposit. No kitchen fund. Just whatever few $100s had been sitting there before. And I would be at work, in a meeting, far away from the explosion. Far away from the phone calls and the angry texts and the accusations. Safe in my own life, with my own money, finally learning what it felt like to say no. Thursday morning arrived cold and clear. I woke at 6 a.m., made coffee, got dressed for work in my usual business casual. Checked my phone. No messages yet. My parents were probably still asleep or just waking up, blissfully unaware that their plans were about to collapse. I opened my banking app while sipping coffee. There it was. My personal checking account, the one I'd switched my direct deposit to. Balance, $14,273.68. The $12,800 tax refund had hit exactly when the IRS promised. 24 hours early, in fact. Sitting safe in an account my parents didn't know existed, couldn't access, couldn't touch. I took a screenshot. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted a record of this moment. The moment everything changed. Before leaving for work, I did something methodical and deliberate. I logged into my email and created a new folder labeled Documentation. Then I went through my old messages, systematically saving every request my parents had made over the last 3 years. Every "can you help with?" and "we need," and "would you mind covering?" The furnace repair in January 2023, $1,847. I found the Venmo transaction. Mom's plane ticket to visit Evelyn in March 2023, $680. Credit card statement saved. Dad's truck tires in June 2023, $920. Screenshot of the auto shop payment confirmation. The water heater replacement in November 2023, $1,200. Bank transfer record downloaded. Mom's dental work in February 2024, $2,400. Check image from my bank archive. On and on. I'd never kept track before, never added it up, never looked at the pattern objectively. Now I did. I created a simple spreadsheet. 3 columns: date, description, amount. By the time I finished, the total sat at the bottom like an accusation. $18,347 over 36 months. An average of $510 per month to parents who claimed they just needed help once in a while. Parents who'd never once offered to pay me back. Never once said thank you in a way that suggested they understood the sacrifice. Never once considered that I might need that money for my own life, my own future, my own dreams. I saved the spreadsheet, backed it up to cloud storage. Then I checked the time. 7:45 a.m. 15 minutes until the contractor arrived at my parents' house. I grabbed my work bag, locked my apartment, drove to the office with the radio off, just silence and the sound of my own breathing. At 8:30 a.m., I was in the office kitchen making my second coffee when my phone vibrated. I knew without looking it was starting, but I didn't check. Not yet. I carried my coffee to my desk, logged into my computer, pulled up the morning emails. A product testing report needed review. A meeting at 10 a.m. about regulatory compliance. Normal work things. The kind of things that felt surreal when you knew your entire family was about to implode 20 minutes away. 8:52 a.m. I opened my phone. 7 missed calls from Dad. 4 from Mom. 3 text messages. I read them in order. Dad, 8:47 a.m. Call me now. There's a problem with the account. Mom, 8:48 a.m. Michael, the money isn't there. Please call us right away. Dad, 8:51 a.m. Where is the refund? Did you move it? Dennis is here, and we told him we had the deposit ready. I could picture it. The 3 of them standing in my parents' kitchen. Dad with his phone, frantically refreshing the bank app. Mom hovering anxiously. Dennis the contractor, checking his watch, probably wondering what was taking so long. The printed contract on the table. The signed agreement promising $6,000 by this morning. My phone rang again. Dad. I declined the call. Sent it straight to voicemail. Another text came through. This one from Mom, and I could feel the panic creeping in. Michael, this is serious. We signed a contract. There are penalty fees if we don't pay today. Please tell me you didn't change anything. I set my phone face down on my desk, took a long sip of coffee, opened the product testing report, and started reading. Focused on battery life metrics and safety protocols while my phone continued vibrating next to my keyboard. Call after call, text after text. At 9:15 a.m., I finally picked up the phone and read through the growing thread of messages. Dad, this is not funny. Call me back immediately. Mom, we're going to lose the spring rate. Dennis says if we can't pay today, he's moving to his next client and we'll have to wait until September. Dad, I don't know what you did, but you need to fix this now. I took another sip of coffee and smiled. At 9:47 a.m., I was in my compliance meeting when my phone started ringing for the 15th time. My coworker, Helen, glanced at my phone screen lighting up on the conference table and raised an eyebrow. I declined the call and mouthed "family emergency" with a small apologetic smile. She nodded sympathetically. If only she knew. The meeting dragged until 10:30. Procurement issues, testing delays, documentation requirements. I participated normally, took notes, asked relevant questions about sterilization protocols. The entire time, my phone sat silent after I'd switched it to Do Not Disturb. But I knew what was waiting. I could feel it like pressure building behind a dam. When the meeting finally ended, I walked to the parking lot, sat in my car, took a breath. Then I turned off Do Not Disturb and watched my phone explode. 23 missed calls, 17 text messages, 2 voicemails. I started with the texts, reading them chronologically like chapters in a book I'd written without them knowing. Dad, 9:23 a.m., Dennis left. We just lost a $6,000 deposit, and he's charging us a $500 cancellation fee for breach of contract. This is your fault. Mom, 9:31 a.m. I don't understand what happened. Did you move the money? Why would you do this to us? Dad, 9:44 a.m. You better have a good explanation. Call me back, or I'm driving to your office. Mom, 10:03 a.m. Your father is very upset. We told Dennis we'd have the money. Now he says he can't fit us in until September, and the price will be $2,000 higher. Michael, please explain what's going on. Dad, 10:18 a.m. I just talked to the bank. They said the tax refund was deposited to a different account. What account? What did you do? There it was. The realization hitting them in waves. First confusion, then panic, then anger, and finally the dawning understanding that I'd taken control of my own money. That their plans had crumbled because I'd made one simple administrative change they never saw coming. I listened to the voicemails next. Dad's voice tight, with barely controlled rage. Michael, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but you just cost us a kitchen renovation and damaged our relationship with a contractor I've known for 15 years. You need to call me back and fix this. Today. The second voicemail was Mom, her voice shaking. Honey, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Maybe you didn't realize we needed that money today? The contractor is gone, and he's very upset. Can you please call us so we can figure out what happened? What happened? Such simple words for such a profound shift. What happened was that I'd stopped being the dependable son who absorbed every demand without question. What happened was that I'd discovered boundaries. What happened was that they'd pushed too far, assumed too much, and finally learned that opening someone's mail and spending their money without permission had consequences. I called Dad back at 11 a.m. He answered on the first ring. Where the hell is the money? No hello. No pretense. My voice came out calm, almost pleasant. In my personal checking account. Where it belongs. Silence. Then, your personal, you moved it? You knew we needed that money today. You needed my money, I corrected gently. Money you had no right to touch. Money you learned about by opening my mail, which is actually a federal crime, by the way. Don't give me that legal garbage, Dad snapped. We're your parents. We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head. And this is how you repay us. The old script. The guilt trip I'd heard in various forms my entire life. But this time, it bounced off me like rain off glass. You raised me to be independent, I said quietly. Remember? That's what you always told people. How independent I was. How I figured things out on my own. I'm just living up to your expectations. This is different, and you know it. Mom's voice came through. She must have grabbed the phone, or Dad had switched to speaker. We already signed the contract. We told Dennis we had the money. Now we look like liars, and we owe him a $500 cancellation fee. Then you shouldn't have signed a contract based on money that wasn't yours. It's family money, Dad cut in. When did you become so selfish? Selfish. The word I'd feared my entire life. The accusation I'd bent myself into shapes to avoid. And now, hearing it, I felt nothing but a cold, clear certainty. When you opened my mail and decided to spend $12,800 without asking me, I said. When you treated me like an ATM instead of a son. When you expected me to fund your home improvements while I'm still paying off the student loans you never helped with. More silence. Then Mom, her voice smaller now. We just thought, you have such a good job. We didn't think you'd mind. You didn't think I'd find out. I corrected. There's a difference. I hung up. Hands steady. Heart rate normal. Phone immediately started ringing again. I declined the call, opened my text messages, and typed one final message to both of them. The $12,800 is mine. I earned it. You stole mail, made financial commitments with money you couldn't access, and now you're facing consequences. Don't contact me again unless you're ready to apologize. Not for getting caught. For thinking you had the right to take it in the first place. Send. Then I blocked both numbers. The silence that followed felt like freedom. 3 days passed in silence. I went to work, came home, lived my life without the constant buzzing of demands disguised as family connection. No calls about broken appliances. No texts about plane tickets or bills or things they needed me to fix. Just quiet. On Sunday evening, an email appeared in my inbox. Mom's address. Subject line. Please read. I almost deleted it. Almost. But curiosity won. I opened it. The email was short. 3 paragraphs typed with obvious care. Michael, your father and I have had time to think about what happened. We spoke to Evelyn about it, and she helped us understand how our actions looked from your perspective. We should not have opened your mail. We should not have assumed we could use your tax refund. We should have asked, not told. We're sorry. We paid Dennis's cancellation fee out of our own savings. We've decided to wait on the kitchen renovation until we can afford it ourselves. If you're willing, we'd like to talk. But we understand if you need more time. We love you. Mom. I read it 3 times. Looked for the manipulation, the guilt trip, the hidden demand. But it seemed genuine. As genuine as 2 people could be after getting caught and facing consequences. Evelyn had called me yesterday. I'd unblocked her number specifically because she wasn't part of this mess. She'd been calm, measured, and surprisingly direct. They told me what happened, she'd said. And honestly, Michael, good for you. I didn't know they'd been treating you like that. I didn't know about all the money you've given them over the years. That's not okay. Her validation had meant more than I expected. The golden child, acknowledging that the dependable son had been exploited. It didn't fix the past, but it helped. Now, sitting with Mom's email, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of a path toward it. If they were willing to actually change. If they understood that boundaries weren't punishments, they were necessities. I typed a response. Kept it brief. I appreciate the apology. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I'm glad you understand what you did wrong. When I'm ready, I'll reach out. Michael. Send. I closed my laptop and looked around my apartment. The same small space I'd lived in for 4 years. But it felt different now. It felt like mine in a way it hadn't before. My money in my account. My choices directing my life. My boundaries protecting my peace. The $12,800 tax refund sat in my savings account, right where I'd planned to put it all along. I'd already allocated it. $8,000 to emergency fund, $3,000 to pay down student loans, $1,800 for that vacation I'd been putting off for years. Maybe Italy, maybe Japan, maybe just somewhere that wasn't here, where I could be Michael the person, not Michael the dependable son. Work continued normally. Life continued normally. But I walked through both with a different posture. Straighter spine, clearer eyes. The weight of obligation I'd carried for 33 years had lifted, and I hadn't realized how heavy it was until I set it down. 2 weeks later, I changed my mailing address for everything. Every bank, every credit card, every government agency. All mail now came to my apartment. To my mailbox. To me. Nobody else would open envelopes with my name on them and decide my money was theirs to spend. I thought about my parents sometimes. Wondered if they were really learning the lesson or just waiting for things to blow over. Wondered if we'd ever have a relationship based on mutual respect instead of one-sided obligation. Tom would tell. Maybe they'd change. Maybe they wouldn't. But I had changed. And that was enough. I'd learned that being dependable didn't mean being disposable. That family didn't justify theft. That saying no wasn't selfish. It was self-respect. And I'd learned that sometimes the quietest revenge was simply taking back what was always yours and walking away from people who never valued you in the first place. The kitchen they wanted never got built. My boundaries did. And those, I would maintain for the rest of my life.